To understand this deeply enough to translate into our parenting, our schools, and the law, it requires understanding the answer to two core questions. The first is, how do the consequences of dad deprivation in education and mental health, physical health, and economic health, how do they lay the foundation for boys hurting and boys who hurting us? And what's the cost, your legislator will want to know, to the taxpayer of boys who hurting us? So we need to know for our legislator what that cost is. Number two, if we motivate boys to be father warriors by telling them how they are needed, well, exactly how are they needed? Specifically, exactly what do dads do that leads to children who have dad involvement doing so much better than children who don't? This isn't just the physical presence of a dad. You know most of the negative consequences of dad deprivation. I'm going to skip to the costs of boys who hurting us. That is, dad-deprived boys we already know hurt. What we don't know so much about is that boys who hurt us. Dad-deprived boys are far more likely to commit crimes, whether to rape our daughters or to rob our homes. The result, we have thousands of women's centers in the United States, but we have a special name for our men's centers. They're called what?
Prisons.
Prisons, exactly. The prison population is what percent males? 93%, exactly. Less well known, as I mentioned before, is that the prisons are also centers for dad-deprived boys and men. And second, a study of ISIS recruits has uncovered that ISIS recruits are almost all, more than 90%, dad-deprived. Not only the boys, which are of course much higher percentage of male ISIS recruits, but the smaller percentage of female ISIS recruits also have in common dad deprivation. Number three, are mass shooters. I've been looking at mass shooters' backgrounds to the extent I could find them, and since Columbine, and found that more than 90% of the mass shooters are dad-deprived boys. Think Sandy Hook, think Charleston, think Parkland, think Las Vegas. If you want to read a story in the boy crisis that will make you cry, look at the story of Stephen Paddock and his relationship with his dad, and the heartbreak that he went through before, and why, and the motivation behind him doing the Las Vegas killing. If those of you have forgotten, that was the biggest mass killing in U.S. history, killed 58, injured 598. These boys hurt, and boys who hurt us. What legislators need to know is the hard economic costs of boys who hurting us. I estimated in the Boy Crisis book, I'll give you a few of the figures, that it's the cost per year for neglecting the boy crisis is about $1 trillion per year. The war on terror has added about $2 trillion to Americans' debt as of fiscal 2018. Think NSA, think TSA, Homeland Security, the Patriot Act, extreme vetting, border walls, immigration costs, immigration bans, plus the psychological costs that accompany the loss of freedoms, such as our children feeling less safe in school. Every 1% reduction in family fragmentation, we need to let our legislators know, would save taxpayers $1.1 billion per year. For example, dad deprivation greatly increases the likelihood of an unmarried teenage mother, and 80% of unmarried teenage mothers become welfare recipients, costing more than $9 billion in taxpayers' dollars per year. As for prison spending, we talked about the percentage of prisoners who are males. Prison spending has increased 5 times the rate of spending per grade school student. Even in progressive California, 23% of new prisons have been built for every one new college since 1980. As for mental health, for childhood mental health disorders alone, predominantly affecting our dad-deprived sons, the U.S. now spends $250 trillion per year annually. After mass shootings, a second worst symptom of mental health trauma is suicide. I hinted a little bit ago that the biggest predictor of suicide is dad deprivation. In addition to the immediate grief and self-blame among family and friends, suicide has an estimated economic cost to the United States of $44 billion per year. When our legislators say we can't afford dad involvement and the costs of it, no, we can't afford the lack of dad involvement. Although dad deprivation is at the hub of the boy crisis, there are 9 other causes of the boy crisis, from the feminization of schools to the feminization of the environment, which is why I am such a strong advocate of a White House Council on Boys and Men to make the boy crisis a national priority and to coordinate private spending, professional spending, philanthropic spending, and government efforts to put on the national agenda. The boy crisis is something your professional association needs to be discussing. Your church needs to be discussing. A lot of churches are picking up this discussion just recently.